Welcome to the Bentley Systems training course where you will learn how to design concrete structures using the Reinforced Concrete Designer within STAAD Pro. In this video, we will be focusing on the design of our concrete columns, which will include defining the column design parameters, designing the columns, and then reviewing the design results. In this video, we will be designing the concrete columns for a model that's already been created and analyzed in STAAD Pro. Once the model is analyzed, we are ready to move over to the Reinforced Concrete Designer. In our Mode menu bar item, we'll select Mode, then followed by Concrete Design. We are now within the STAAD Pro Reinforced Concrete Designer. We're going to notice that the graphical user interface for this module looks pretty similar to STAAD Pro, and the idea of the workflow is very similar as well. What we're going to do is we're going to first focus on setting up our model for design, which means we're going to work our way through the Design Layer tab and focus on each of these sub-tabs. After that, we are ready to move on to the design of the concrete columns, which will happen in the Concrete Member tab down here. Now for this particular model, we can go ahead and skip the Job Information group and the Load Envelopes group. Load envelopes are brought over from the STAAD Pro modeling mode, but the design of the concrete columns actually does not use load envelopes for it anyway. Next, we're going to move over to the Members tab, and we're going to notice that all of the physical members that were created in the STAAD Pro modeling mode have successfully made their way over to the RC Designer. Next, we're going to move over to our Groups and Briefs tab, which is the first location where we're going to need to do some adjustment for this particular model. What we're going to have to start with is creating a column design brief and a column design group. A column design brief is used to specify the column design parameters, including the design code and the material properties, and that's where we'll start. Down in the design dialog at the bottom of the screen, in the data area, we'll now click on our new brief button. We can enter our brief anything we want. We're going to enter column design brief, and we're going to select our design code. For this training, we're going to select the ACI 31805 design code, which is a US design code that uses imperial units. You're going to notice that we also have several international codes available and several codes that will utilize metric units if they're applicable to your structure. Next, we're going to enter our design type, and we're going to make sure we select column here. This will apply column design rules to the members that are going to belong to this brief. Once we are done, we can go ahead and click OK. Once we click OK, we're going to have to enter the column design brief parameters, or basically your column design parameters. Here we can enter information about our materials that we're going to be using, including our concrete compressive strength and also our main bar reinforcement. You will also notice down here that for circular sections, we could either use tie reinforcement or spiral reinforcement. Next, we're going to enter our column parameters. Here we can enter our bracing conditions and whether or not to include torsional effects. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to enter our load cases. Now, the concrete columns are designed using a collection of primary load cases and combinations. Unlike the beam design, the design for columns is performed considering the forces in each case or combination, and a suitable reinforcement layout is defined accordingly. For this model, we're going to select all of our generated ACI load combinations. So we're going to highlight all of them in the available window and then move them over to the selected area using the single right-hand arrow. Once we are done entering our column design brief parameters, we can go ahead and click OK. Now, if at any point during the preparation or design phase, if you want to change any of those parameters, we can just come down here and click the Edit Brief button. The next step in our workflow is to create a new column design group. A design group is used to specify which columns to design and which design brief should be used in the design. We're going to select all of our concrete columns in this model. So we're going to hold down our Control key, and with our physical members cursor, we're going to select all of our columns. Once you've selected your columns, we'll go ahead and click New Design Group. We will go ahead and name it and then specify that this group is going to use the column design brief. Once we are done, we can click OK. Now it is possible for your model to contain multiple column design briefs and design groups if you needed to vary different parameters between different column members. Now at this point we are ready to perform our design. So we're going to go ahead and select our Concrete Member tab, followed by our Design sub-tab. It's going to automatically bring up the dialog for our design options, which is going to select all of the columns within the current design group. If we are satisfied with designing all of the columns, we'll go ahead and click on the Design button. Now several members are giving us a design warning or a design message after the design is performed. And it says a sensible bar arrangement cannot be achieved within the section dimensions. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and we'll investigate a little further at where that's happening. So in our main window, it looks like our design has been completed, and it's showing us the design status of each column in the model. Every member that is in green has passed all design code checks, and a sensible reinforcement layout has been created for those columns. We do have 4 columns that are currently failing, and what you're going to notice is that they are in red and they're showing us that they're failing, and this is in our summary table. Now that the design has been performed, let's review the reinforcement layouts for the columns that did pass the code check. Over the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see in the page control area a main layout tab and a shear layout tab. The main layout tab provides the main reinforcement design results in graphical format. Here in our main window, we can select any of the columns that pass the code check, and we can review the reinforcement that was assigned to each one. Next, we can select the Shear Layout tab, which will provide the shear reinforcement design results also in graphical format. For this particular member that we have selected, we can see that we have number for our bars or ties placed at 14 inches on center. Finally, for some additional information, we can select our Results tab, which will provide the main and shear reinforcement design results in tabular format. So we can select any particular member in the model, and we can review their main reinforcement and their shear reinforcement. Now for this particular model, we did have several different concrete columns that have failed the design code check. We have a couple different options here. The first option would be adjusting the column design brief. If we feel that maybe some of different design parameters could be assigned to these particular columns that could maybe get them to pass the code check, we can go ahead and adjust those. These might be things like different bar arrangements, or also maybe adjusting the concrete compressive strength. If, however, you need to change the size of the member to be able to get that sufficient reinforcement layout, that needs to be done over in the STAAD Pro modeling mode, and that's what we'll go ahead and do for this exercise. If I click File, Exit, I'm going to go back to the STAAD Pro modeling mode. In the page control area, I'm now going to select the General tab, and I'm going to take a look at these concrete columns. It looks like a 16-inch by 16-inch column was assigned to these 4 in the front that are currently failing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and define some new concrete column sizes of 30 inches by 30 inches. And I'm going to assign these sizes to those columns. Now whenever you change anything within the modeling mode, what will need to happen is we will need to reanalyze the structure and go back to the Reinforced Concrete Designer to make sure we have appropriate or updated analysis results. So we're going to go ahead and select Analyze, followed by Run Analysis again. And we're going to make our way back to the Reinforced Concrete Designer. Now what we're going to notice is that all of the information that we had already previously defined for this particular model in the Reinforced Concrete Designer has been retained. So all we need to do is go back and reperform the design. So in the page control area, I'm going to select the Concrete Member tab, followed by the Design sub-tab, and I'm going to redesign all of the concrete columns. After the design is performed, we're going to go ahead and see the new status of the design. All of the concrete columns are now currently saying OK, and now the design is complete. This completes our process for designing our reinforced concrete columns in the STAAD Pro Reinforced Concrete Designer.